evening and welcome to this edition of Black Nouveau. I'm Joanne Williams. This week, Packers great Willie Davis joins us to discuss his new autobiography. We'll profile comedian Rob G., a funny man who's serious about life. And we'll preview Milwaukee's upcoming Martin Luther King Day celebration. But we begin with a conversation with Congresswoman Gwen Moore. Now, you have a particular bill that you want to get introduced again, the Violence Against Women Act. First of all, what happened to it in the first place?
Well, the original Violence Against Women Act passed in 1994, long before I came to Congress. And it was a result of best practices which really demonstrated that there needed to be funding, advocacy, education, services for women who face violence. Services, not just shelters and hotlines, but actual resources for judges, police officers. And it has passed every single reauthorization without a hitch. This year, I was the chief sponsor of the House bill. And best practices indicated that we needed to expand services to Native women who live on tribal lands. We needed to add more U visas for immigrant women who were undocumented but experiencing violence in the United States. And we also needed to protect the LGBT community for violence.
When you're talking about tribal lands, there are tribal lands here in Wisconsin.
Absolutely. We have 11 tribes here in Wisconsin.
Does it happen here?
Oh, absolutely. It happens on tribal lands here. And it's so much so that we've even heard stories, and I don't know if this is in Wisconsin or not, but we've heard stories of people who deliberately drag their victims onto tribal lands to commit these crimes, knowing that they can do it with impunity.
If that's one of the hang-ups, and the gay and lesbian inclusion is a hang-up, what about all the other women who now aren't being protected by the Violence Against Women Act? Why aren't we hearing from all of them?
Well, fortunately, we are hearing from them. But fortunately, because of continuing resolutions, the authorization for the program, the funding levels are there. But we aren't able to make these improvements. I just want you to realize that the Violence Against Women Act has been updated. There was a time where if you were beaten up, you called the police, and there were no laws like mandatory arrest. There were no laws to protect you. There were no shelters. There were no hotlines. So the Violence Against Women Act and the provisions that have been involved in it have evolved as people have come to understand. Not just advocates, but police and the FBI understand what needs to be added. And this is just the newest version of what law enforcement and advocates see needs to be had. A lesbian woman could show up at a shelter and that shelter not serve her, not because she's a battered woman, but because she's a lesbian. And Native women, as I've indicated, they're raped on tribal lands and nothing happens, because there's no power of the tribal jurists to do anything about it, and no federal court is going to, 200 miles away, is going to take the time to be bothered with prosecuting that crime.
So if the act has to be reintroduced,
yes.
What about the services that have been offered through the years up to this point? Are they still going on? Are they still available?
Those services will be available under current law. But if you're an immigrant woman, we talk about sex trafficking all the time. What if you're a tribal woman and say you're an undocumented woman here and you're being held in some sort of slavery? You don't have the ability to go and cooperate with police and get a U visa to give you temporary residency here in the United States, cooperate with local officials, to be able to testify against that person.
So what's your strategy? What's your plan to get it reauthorized?
Well, we're going to reintroduce it. We're going to stay connected with all of the groups and agencies, law enforcement agencies that support this. And we're hoping to take this to the streets, Joanne, to be able to educate the public about the recalcitrance on the part of the current House majority to take these matters up and to try to bring that political pressure to bear.
Can you use the incident here in Wisconsin at the beauty salon as an example to your colleagues that violence against women is a big problem?
It has to be a steady push for legislation. I think that people think that the violence against women is, that it may be isolated, but a woman dies every single day from violence, every single day from violence. And there aren't enough resources, even though it's been reauthorized. And with the sequester and numbers of other things, cuts that are being proposed, there's a greater danger that there are going to be fewer resources for women who are experiencing violence.
What can we do?
Voters need to weigh in. They need to reconsider some of the choices that they have made. They need to weigh in with their legislators and see, if there are some of the people who are holding out their vote because of their prejudices and bigotries against certain people. It doesn't matter what you think of a lesbian. I mean, a lesbian does not deserve to be beaten to death. Someone living on tribal land shouldn't be, have less protection than other women. Women here who are undocumented don't deserve to be battered and beaten because they're still human beings. And I think that people need to weigh in with their legislators and in Congress and register that sentiment.
Y'all make some noise, please, for Milwaukee's own Rob G. Y'all, come on, get loud. Y'all shit, get loud, man. All right, y'all, my first shout out is the PBS, because this is my second interview with them. Yes, it is. And thanks to y'all, I am famous in the hood now, yes. Yes. I get free blunts, blacks, and beer everywhere I go. Even the Arabs know me. They're like, ain't you Rob G, the one who beat up women? No, we're trying to stop that.
This is comedian Rob G performing at a domestic violence prevention fundraiser that was held at Nostalgia 2. And yes, we spoke with him earlier that day before the Rob G personality came out. During the day, he's Robert Jones' store manager at Lena's Food Market. He does comedy as a pastime to express himself.
My daddy funny. I mean, it was like my whole life, he was annoying to everybody else, but to me it was hilarious. So when I seen him doing it, and I was like, I always figured out, when I get older, I don't know what I'm doing on stage, but I always felt funny. So when I got the opportunity, I was like, I can take what he started and I can finish.
What do you get out of doing comedy?
It's just it's an excitement. It's like an adrenaline rush. You go on that stage and it's like you could be a whole nother person. Like being here, I'm a professional. I'm the store manager. I'm somebody who working. But when on that stage, you can be anybody you want to be. And who I've been when I leave here is Rob G. And stage finally let me free him and let him do his thing in front of cameras. And y'all, I always do a public service announcement part of my show. You understand me? That's where I tell grown folks what they shouldn't do in public. So this one tonight, I'm gonna be telling grown people what they shouldn't wear in public, okay? Mama always told me ladies first, so ladies, here we go. Ladies, if you over the age of 12, can you please stop coming outside in your pajama clothes? That's disgusting. I know some men may find it, but you know what that say to Rob? You know what that say to me? They tell me you jump your out of bed, ran past the bathroom, said f the soap, and came to the Lena's where I work at. Talking about Rob G. Is the poke chops on sale? No, bitch. Soap and face towel on sale, aisle 5. My mama always told me, if you ain't got 2 minutes for your face, you damn sure ain't got 10 for your special place. Bullshit ain't nothing.
Rob said his biggest fan is his wife.
He's been married for 13 years and has 2 children. And believe it, he's a family man.
I knew once I had children, I wasn't gonna do anything to disrupt what was going on with them. As far as comedy, that's why I've been here 15 years. I have 2 boys, I'm trying to raise 2 men. And my father wasn't around as much as he should be. You know, but I love him, he's a good guy. And it's just to the point where I'm not gonna make that mistake. I'm not gonna put nothing before them, nobody before them. And cause they the reason why I do anything and everything. I gotta work 2 or 3 jobs, that's what I'm gonna do for my kids. And that's what Milwaukee is lacking now. Men ain't putting their families first. They putting other things before their families. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be like my grandparents had it in the early 60s, where it's one family striving for one goal.
What type of comedy do you do?
Actually, my comedy hit a whole lot of points. You know what I'm saying? I talk about a lot of different things because I talk about my life. My kids, my wife, my job, W2, and Barack Obama.
We got our president back. We got Barack Obama back. Give it up for my man. That's my nigga. I love that nigga. I was watching the news the other day. They gonna say he caused the recession. Ain't that? He caused the recession. I've been broke my whole mother life. I'm 32 years old. I mean, y'all, look, when I was little, I was poor. I thought milk only came in a powder form till I went to kindergarten. I'm not bull. I still know how to make it. Get you 2 quarts of water, 1 cup of powdered milk, a half a cup of sugar. You stir and let chill. You be eating cereal in no motherfucking time. I'm not bullshitting with you.
Tell story jokes. I try to make it to where people get into the story and they get a punchline in the beginning, the middle, and the end. So I tell different kind of jokes. Sound like, I think it's more like Bernie Mac.
Why is it important that you're involved with the show tonight?
Because I was raised on 15th and North, and I grew up around a lot of domestic violence. I grew up around a lot of women who got beat on or jumped on by their spouses or their boyfriends, however you want to say. And it's just, I figured that me being a part of this, I can bring them out tonight, bring everybody out tonight and raise awareness of what's going on out here. So in comedy, if you do that, it'd be better for everybody, because you know what I'm saying, you're looking for a laugh, but you come for a message. I guess people want to get famous, get rich, and do Cat Williams. Me, I just like being eccentric. I like being Rob G. I like being on the stage. And like I said, I can do it for the next 20 years. And if nothing comes of it, if I can just sit down with me and my kids and my wife and watch the show, it's good enough for me. Because I'm not doing bad with what I'm doing here.
Why did you want to write about your life?
It's a very good question, and maybe equally kind of interesting is the name I chose, Closing the Gap. And when I thought about writing this book, frankly, I thought about what can I write about that I can be very open, that I can be very forward with everything without much concern.
Willie D. Davis. The D doesn't stand for a middle name. He says his mother just gave him the letter.
You know, it's interesting. My mother is probably the whole background and whole basis for almost everything in my life, for my pursuit of excellence, for my determination to do things with success.
Willie D. Davis has closed several gaps in his multi-career life. Maybe his mom put that letter in there to give him determination. To Davis, closing the gap means getting from point A to point B and not giving up until you do. And when he got around to writing a book, he didn't want to write a tell-all-the-secrets from the locker room expose.
So the last thing I wanted to do was to kind of blast some teammate or say something just for the excitement of, because it might have been a little bit off base.
He wanted to tell his story in the positive and determined way that he has lived his life. From taking odd jobs as a kid in Texarkana, Texas, to high school football, to college ball with legendary coach Eddie Robinson at Grambling University in Louisiana, to the National Football League, where he had high hopes for a career with the Cleveland Browns. But he hit an unexpected wall after only 2 years.
Anytime you didn't necessarily satisfy Coach Brown, he would start up talking to you about, well, you know, if you don't like it here, we can always send you to Green Bay, the Siberia of football. I go, oh my God. So you know, your one thought, if you were a Cleveland Brown, you did not want to go to Green Bay for sure. Well, I had been on the west side of Cleveland and substituting out there as a substitute teacher, and I'm driving home, and I hear for the first time in the car, second year lineman for the Cleveland Browns, Willie Davis, traded to Green Bay. And I was just crushed. I mean, I make no apology other than I was flat out crushed.
Did it turn out to be as bad as you thought it might be?
You know, I can only say this. The next 10 years of my football life, we were in 6 championship games. We lost the first one in Philadelphia. We won 5 championships beyond that, including the first 2 Super Bowls. The Siberia, huh? No, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I learned a lesson in business, and maybe an important lesson in business, because nothing after that ever fazed me to that extent. And it probably gave me more toughness and more commitment and more of all the things you need to be successful. And I guess it all culminated when I was in Canton for the Hall of Fame, and I looked out at my mother, and this was the last big event she saw before she passed away. And I remember I stood up and I looked out and said, "Mom," and I could just see her out there in the audience. And my mother would cry at the top of her hat. I go, "Mom," I said, "this is a long way from Texarkana."
So when his football playing days were over, Davis and all of his championship trophies and an MBA from the University of Chicago moved on to other hard-nosed playing fields, the business office and the boardroom.
Sometime when you were sitting at a meeting and you would look across at the fact that you were the only black in the room, and you said to yourself, you know, what is this? I mean, is this an unusual experience for me?
He made a name for himself in business with a highly successful Schlitz beer distributorship in Los Angeles. Almost 30 major corporations recruited him for their board of directors.
The way I pursued this is failure is no option. I mean, I cannot fail in this beer business. I'm in the process of taking over a beer franchise, had been the worst in Watts, California, and when I sold it 20 years later, it had gone from worst to first.
Then he discovered a business opportunity to satisfy people's thirst for information and entertainment, as well as their thirst for beer. He bought a radio station in California, then stations in Milwaukee. Do you like it? Do you like the radio business?
I flat out love it, and I don't know. I say to myself now, how would I have felt about radio if I had not gone? And I said, I think I would have been an occasional listener, but now I'm absolutely a person. I can't do without music or news or whatever that I get from radio. If I'm hooked.
There are 30 chapters in Closing the Gap. The last one is called Final Lessons. But it's doubtful that it will be the final chapter in the careers of Willie Davis. As he says in the book, if the opportunity arises, be the first. Be groundbreaking.
The man upstairs must have been with me, because to go through all of this process and to have it work well, I mean, I truly feel like an individual blessed. I mean, There's no other way I can view it.
Since 1984, Milwaukee and Atlanta have been the only cities in the United States to annually celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. This year's celebration is at the Marcus Center for the Performing Arts. The event will highlight our youth. They interpret Dr. King's work through art, speech, and writing. The theme is fair play, goodwill, and justice.
Question: if you were given the opportunity to pick your family, what family would you pick? Would you pick family A, that has economic and social means with good genetics? You know, the supposedly correct bone structure, the right texture of hair. Or would you pick family B, the one with the less economic and social means, the one with the not so good genes, the family that has to work harder to get noticed and to gain opportunities because of their economic and social class? You don't have to think long and hard to answer this question. I'm pretty sure all of us would select family A. Why would any one of us set ourselves up to work harder? However, the truth of the matter is you don't get a chance to pick your family. And the facts are some of us are born into families with economic and social status with the so-called perfect genes. And some of us are born into families with the less economic and social means, with the less than perfect genes. Another fact is just because you weren't born in a more influential or fortunate family doesn't mean you are incompetent. It doesn't mean you don't have the intellect, the skills, and the heart to be a contributing and productive member of society. All people deserve fair play, goodwill, and justice. I play sports, football, basketball, and baseball. And when I'm out on the field or the court, I count on and believe that the referees and the umpires are going to make the right calls without any personal biases. We as people, we as human beings living in the great nation, in this world, cannot continue to overlook social disparity and unjust actions, neglecting our natural conscience of what's right and what's wrong. We can no longer afford to have the attitude that if it doesn't affect me, it's not my problem. Because the truth of the matter is, the problem that you thought wasn't your problem will become your problem in some other venue. A minority report published in the Daily Beast on February 18, 2010 stated, the United States once had the highest graduation rate for college students of any nation. But in 2010, the United States was in the 10th position. It was the first time in American history the risk that the rising generation will be less well educated than the previous one. The report also stated that the graduation rates for minorities lag behind. And as the minority population grows in the United States, low college graduation rates became a threat to national prosperity. It didn't say individual prosperity, but national prosperity. So here's another question. Does reduced funding for education and educational assistance affect you? The Declaration of Independence states, all men are created equal. President Lincoln argued this point and thought this language of the Declaration was universal, setting a high moral standard for which the American Republic should aspire. We must go forward, not accepting subservient attitudes that make us complacent with society's status labels. Let us have the love within our hearts and the mindset that makes us do right, even when we want to do wrong. Let us have the sense and the morality to know that love is the greatest power. It can conquer all things.
So, Donovan, this is the third time you've won this speech contest.
Yes.
What makes you such a good writer?
Well, I think it all started throughout elementary school. Before, when I was little, I started off with a speech impairment. So it was always hard for me to get my point across of what I wanted to say. It always came out a little slower than other kids. So my main thing that I went to was writing. Whenever I needed to get something across, I could always express myself through writing. And when I started in 4th grade, I was asked by a teacher to talk at our honors night, and that's where it started. I wrote a speech about my my life and everything going through the school from K4 all the way up to that time period, and people just loved it. And then my teacher recommended me to enter the competition, and I did that the following year, and I've just been doing it ever since.
Well, congratulations to you again
Thank you.
in this year's contest.
Thank you.
You're going to Rufus King International Baccalaureate School.
Yes.
It's always a mouthful to say that.
Yeah.
And are you in the IB courses?
Yes, I have 6 IB courses. I'm not full IB, but I have mostly IB courses. Like they said, IB isn't for everyone. Like, I didn't really feel that it was for me. But I feel that I'm at the school for a reason, so why not take some classes and challenge myself? So,
for people who don't know, International Baccalaureate is a very difficult curriculum to go through, so I admire you for trying to go through full IB. When you wrote this speech, the theme was supposed to be fair play, goodwill, and justice.
yes.
Of those 3, what's the most important to you? Fair play, goodwill, or justice?
That's kind of hard because all of them are very important, but I would say fair play. Throughout history and going back from time periods way long ago, we've always had an issue with us people, having an issue with fair play. Going back to culture and race and way past that, I feel that everyone should have equal opportunities and justice for, having, a good life. So with that being said, I really believe fair play is very important in all aspects of life.
All right, and you certainly got your message across in the speech that you wrote. Congratulations. It's a very good speech, and you presented it very well, too. So you've overcome any problems you had with public speaking.
Yeah.
You did very, very well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we'll be able to hear Donovan Nathaniel's speech at the Martin Luther King celebration. And we hope everybody enjoys it, and we'll follow you and see what happens to you next. Thanks for joining us on Black Nouveau.
Thank you.
The 29th annual Martin Luther King Jr. celebration will be held on Sunday, January 20th, 2013 at the Marcus Center for the Performing Arts. It starts at 1 in the afternoon, and the event is free and open to the public. And that's our program for this week. For Black Nouveau, I'm Joanne Williams. Thanks for watching, and have a good evening.